Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Delhi Chapter's webinar. Today, we are thrilled to host an insightful and a hopeful conversation with the celebrated coach, Doctor of Psychology, MCC, the author of books which are considered as Bible for all the coaches, Dr. Marcia Reynolds.
Thank you.
In a world dominated by negativity, we are gathered here to focus on hope, transformation, and breakthroughs that redefine what's possible for individuals and organization. That's why we are having these sessions. While there's a lot of negativity, we have two ambassadors of hope who are creating the transformers of the new world. Marcia, with nearly 30 years of experience, I'm just sharing what is not there on LinkedIn. Everybody knows, just the highlights. With nearly 30 years of experience, she shaped the coaching landscape globally. As a fifth global president of ICF and a coach, she's impacted over 100,000 leaders in 36 countries. She continues to inspire with her latest book, Breakthrough Coaching, published early this year, which has got also a program attached to it. And as well as her recent work with Aeon Vietnam, winner of the ICF Global Impact Award for Emerging Organization, which happened last month. So joining Marcia is very own Sandhya Mathur, MCC Director of Credentialing at ICF Delhi NCR. She's the founder of Inward Focus and known for her empathy transformative coaching. Sandhya has been instrumental in mentoring future coaches and guiding them towards life-changing sapphire moments. And I'm Devishi, the Secretary of ICF Delhi NCR, a Commonwealth Scholar, and I'm a part of the ICF Global Awards team, an ICF coach, and hungry, curious learner. So I'm excited to host this inspiring conversation between two futurists. I just can't wait to have this conversation where both of you navigate through the landscape of breakthroughs. So I'd like to invite Sandhya Mathur to take us through these breakthrough stories. And I'm curious to know how this all started.
Yeah, thanks, Devishi. Thank you so much. Marsha, she makes her introductions. I've been on webinars with Devishi. Her introductions just make you feel better than you would feel about your achievements. She does it so well. Thanks, Devishi, and welcome, Marsha, once again. Great to have you here, and it's been a pretty long-term planning we've had, and finally we meet. Yes, you're the guru everyone in the coaching world follows. You've achieved a lot as a coach, as an author, as a mentor over the last nearly 3 decades. Basha, the landscape of coaching when you began, or when I began about 15 years later, your journey to excellence must have been so different from what the landscape that we see today. I'm really curious. What was it like? How did it all start? What brought you to coaching?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a number of stories that all kind of align that brought me to this wonderful profession. But really focusing on what I was trying to do in the world, my first master's degree was actually in broadcasting. And I had this idea I would make like programs that would teach people great things. So it was more like instructional videos. And I was actually hired by a psychiatric hospital to push their television sets around and film projectors for people to use. So it wasn't a glamorous job, but it was for the training department. And my boss got in a big argument with the only trainer we had for these 3 hospitals, fired him, and then decided to get her doctorate. So she dumped the whole department in my lap. There's a difference between delegating and dumping, and she dumped. But I think she did believe in me, even though I was just fresh out of school and I was young, that I could do this. And when people talk about your best bosses, I always name her, even though I didn't know what I was doing, but that she believed in me, which is a lot of what we do as coaches. And my first assignment was management training. And so I sat in the room with people and I said, I followed the instructional book with the program. But I said, obviously, I've never been a manager, so I would like to make this more conversational. So even then, just out of accident, I recognized that the people in the room were smart. They didn't need me to treat them like they didn't know anything. So I had that experience, but I really wanted to do better. What does it take for people to learn and grow? And so I decided to get a second master's degree in adult learning and instructional design. And that really piqued my interest. What does it take for people to learn and grow, to sustain change, to transform truly? Because transformation means it's sustainable. But oftentimes it's not really a transformation. It's like, I will try new things. And as soon as people feel awkward, they go back to old behavior. And from that job, I moved into a computer company and then semiconductors. So I was in the tech world for 11 years and always trying to improve my training to make it more participative and fun and all the things, the research that was coming out. This is how you do good training. And people loved the classes. They would give me happy faces at the end. But of course, the retention of learning wasn't much. It never increased a whole lot. And they'd feel awkward and go back to old behavior. But I kept researching. I know there's a better way. I know there's a better way. It was dropped in my lap that the day I resigned from my last job, and I always knew I was going to run my own business because my family for generations had been entrepreneurs and I just needed the experience and knowledge. And I had told my boss that when he hired me, but he didn't believe me. He says, nobody just does that when you're making a good salary and stock options and all of that. And I said, no, I want to make a bigger impact in the world. And plus, I hit the glass ceiling. They told me they weren't going to promote me anymore. So I'm going to go do something more challenging. It was the day I resigned, or it was my last day on the job. I got this article. It was 1995 about this new thing called coaching. And it was about Thomas Leonard, who started Coach U, who actually started the International Coach Federation. And I said, there's something different here. So I actually signed up to watch a demo. And I knew, this is the missing link. Something's happening different, which then launched my whole curiosity, not just to sign up and be a coach, and help to get the ICF going from the very beginning, but to try to understand what's the difference between instructing and coaching. And that's what really inspired me to get my doctorate, because this new thing called neuroscience was just launching as well, really coming out because they were able to finally scan the brain and see what happens when we have emotional responses or we learn. And so there was actually I was researching the neuroscience of learning, which was fairly new at the time. And I wanted the latest research because it was so brand new. And I had been researching and teaching for the US government emotional intelligence and working with a lot of the top leaders and of neuroscientists and psychologists, and we would share information, and that was just a lucky thing, another wonderful accident. But I finally saw that it's different. We're working with a different part of the brain with coaching, and it's why when we create those breakthroughs, those aha moments, it actually happens in the creative brain and creates new connections and makes it sustainable. So we transform people, not just the way they think, but the way they think about themselves, who I am. And so I continue to be passionate about this. And yes, I came out with Breakthrough Coaching, but I just signed with my publisher to do the next edition of Coach the Person that will come out in 2026. Yeah. Because I'm
Wow.
learning more and more every time I publish a book. But I know new things that I want to share with you because we are making a difference, not just for people, but for the world. I'm so proud of winning the Impact Award for working with a Vietnamese company to transform their culture because we coach people, but we also transform organizations and people, those people that go out into the world to make a difference. That company is now going out into Vietnam and trying to convince all the other companies that coaching is a good thing. So when people feel like the impact of coaching, they're like, oh, I need to share this with others. And we keep spreading it around the world. And that's why I get up at 5:30 in the morning to be here with you to
Right.
help spread this amazing thing that we have all aligned to and the
Right.
difference that we can make in the world.
Beautiful, Marcia. Thank you so much. I noticed that passion and the sense of purpose that started, of course, it was, as you said, accidental, but the universe wanted you to be here, right?
Intended, yeah.
Yes, it
Tapped
was
on the shoulder.
destined. It was destined. And yeah, and you've been writing all of these books. I've been following every single one of them. And you wear so many different hats, the author, the speaker, the coach, the mentor, and you've been doing this for years. I'm sure everyone wants to know what's the magic potion? How do you manage that?
No, I don't have children.
I get it. I so resonate with you.
Yeah, I
Yes.
have my cat. She and I are on this journey together. I think that's a thing, though, when we run by passion and purpose, then we don't get tired or over. It's not that I don't ever get overwhelmed. This time of year, it's always crazy. But it helps me to move through things to, if anything is seems to be difficult, or all of a sudden I realize I have all these programs coming up, but
I
to this is the
completely get
purpose.
that passion and the purpose part
Purpose.
of it. In
Hmm.
fact, I love the concept of ikigai, the passion, the purpose, and the drive behind it. Love
Yeah.
that. But this is totally about you today.
Mhm.
And Marsha, you've witnessed, you've participated and shaped the change in this landscape from the time you started to now with all of these books and so much work.
Mm.
And you would have also experienced the resistance to change from individuals, organizations as well. No matter what their situation, there's a certain comfort level in that, let's say, a not so nice relationship, a
Yeah.
stressful job, a stressful system in an organization. And there's resistance to change. It's like people are comfortable with the misery or it's like their identity, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm curious, what is it that works in these situations when and then go ahead and create those breakthrough moments?
There's two things that I heard you name. It's both individuals and organizations, and I've uh, worked on both tracks.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing. Back when we started ICF, we had no idea. Okay, we're doing this cool thing. Let's create an association. And there was even like the whole, do we open it up to everyone in the world? We had to even discuss that because I think Thomas's intention at first was that it would cycle people who was marketing for him. Where we actually had the second ICF president, Jeff Rame, who fought him and said, no, to be a professional association, we have to be an association for everyone, which really helped us to grow globally and invite this amazing community. But when we were starting off, we were very small and really working on we have to define coaching, the competencies and the definitions so we can stand out and be different. We can identify how we're different from mentors, advisors, therapists. So that became really critical. And I'm so proud that the ICF definition of coaching, that this is a partnership, which is really the distinction. I'm not smarter than you. You and I'm partnering with you to help you to think in a broader way. And that it's a spontaneous interaction that sparks creative insights. That the definition, if you look it up on the website, it's still there from what we defined, and really spent a lot of time arguing about this and looking at what we do. And then the competencies, it's like we always knew they'd be changed, but we needed to distinguish coaching in order for it to survive. And even when I became president and certification was just coming out, I was bombarded by therapists saying, you should just certify me. And I'm like, no, you have to demonstrate that the distinction of coaching and therapy. And boy, I was slammed with that. But it was so important, and I continued to push that in order to convince those resistant and hesitant people about, I don't know why I need coaching or how it will help me, we have to define the impact. And so if you look at a lot of my work, I'm continually looking at what is the magic of coaching. And especially now, because so many coaches are afraid that AI will replace us. But if you look at coaching presence, it's not just the skills. Your skills are not even as important as your presence. Because if you don't have that being able to emotionally give your client, I am here for you. I care about you. I believe in you. And they feel that, and it actually creates a chemical reaction in them that they trust you. And then you can apply your skills. That's not going to be easily replicated with AI anytime soon.
Absolutely.
And so to be able for you all to understand the biochemical reaction of coaching, that it's not just I can do these skills in a checklist, but once you get the skills down, the competencies, you really have to deepen your presence. And that's what I write about in my mastery program, Deep Dive into Coaching, really focuses on that. And that's going to be the first chapter of the new Coach the Person, not the problem. So we can all identify that clearly. So we sustain coaching, and we can still convince people that they need it, besides all the research that says that. Companies are interesting. Companies don't transform until they're in trouble. Yeah, but you know what? The pandemic pushed a lot of them into trouble. And the new generations, what they're requiring from their leaders to interact with them, to be heard, to be respected, and not just told what to do, is requiring a shift. And so I'm finding more and more companies are embracing coaching because they have to. I first started teaching, coaching cultures and leadership coaching. It was far more popular in China than it was even here in the US, where they're so resistant. And the leader said, we don't really like this, but we know we have to do it. And so maybe they come kicking and screaming, but they know they must transform, they must change. And so there's a lot more opportunity opening up on even the coaching culture side, as well as the individual. So we're still working on that. And ICF that's the greatest thing they've done, is spread the word of coaching around the world. All their marketing efforts and everything they do. Do I agree with everything that they do? No, but they've done that really well. So that's why I'm still here. I'm the only president from the 1900s that still shows up and is active with the ICF, because I totally support and believe in all the good work they've done.
Absolutely. And the edits and the updates to the competencies have been fabulous. But you're absolutely right. As a mentor, when I talk to my mentees, the coaches, presence is something that is a life state, I believe. It has to be a part of you. Without that, you're not going to be able to listen or demonstrate any other competency. And based on that, in continuation, I would say, that I see a number of coaches, and that's a lot of people come there with their experience, that I did my best. I did all those competencies. I demonstrated all of those competencies, but the breakthrough moment or the successful outcome did not happen.
Yeah.
So, why do you think that's happening? Maybe rhetoric, but is
Yeah.
it too much attachment to the outcome,
Yeah.
or are the coaches focusing too much on the only what and how conversations
Yeah.
just to get to
All of
the
that.
outcome?
All of that. You just,
Yeah,
that's the focus on the skills. I, when people watch me demo, which I'm always doing demos, and they say, "What were you thinking when you said that?" I wasn't. What I have worked on over the years is that when I'm coaching, I am not thinking. I'm receiving what they're giving me, and I'm just concisely offering back the key words, the things that really hit me that seem to be important or they keep repeating. And I'm just curious about that. So what I hear you said was this, and it seems to me that you've got a real attachment to this just by what I observe. I'm just sharing back what they give me. I don't have to think about it. If I think about it, I'm going to interpret it and I'm going to miss something they're saying. And I believe we have to learn the competencies. That's what we learn at the level one basic. But beyond that, if you're coaching from here, then you're going to miss things and it's going to just be focused on surface. But once we learn them, we put the competencies back here. So when people ask me that would that demo pass MCC, and I'm like, so what competency did you think I did not do? I know that I'm getting agreement, but it's not going to be the formulaic questions that you might have been taught to ask. But there will come a point where I'll say, so it sounds what you really want to create is this. Is that what you want to spend our time together on? That's the agreement, but it's based on the story that they're giving and the challenge they're facing that I feed it back and then ask. And so I do it in a way with the interaction, the co-creation with them instead of following. So, what do you want to do today? Why is that important? What's your measure of success? See, I know the questions and I know I'm getting to them, but it's within the spontaneous interaction. And at the end, I always make sure there's a commitment to take one step after they have an awareness. But I believe that many you even get breakthroughs and clarity even when we're defining what it is they really want right up front. Yeah. So it is a focus on, am I doing it right? Am I providing value for people? And how many coaches I mentor, it's like they start off way too formulaic, and then all of a sudden they coach amazingly. And I'm like, can you do that up front? But they're like, I have to make sure I go down the checklist. But I
right.
know letting it go, it's not easy. So that's why you have to have so many hours of coaching to practice. Trusting yourself that you know the competencies, where we're going, the framework. I have to define what the person wants, and then there has to be a step forward. But then you activate your presence throughout to hear what's really getting in the way and to be able to share that back and how they're defining themselves in the moment. There's the path of mastery is ongoing. We just keep getting better. I know I coach so much better now than a few years ago, and I still have a ways to go.
Beautiful. There's no, of course, we're all learning. And it's such a beautiful, when you just you're in the conversation,
Hmm.
you're going to be able to coach the intangible so that you get to the tangible, right? The
Yeah.
intangible meaning the emotional, the spiritual part of that individual, exploring the depth of their emotions, their values, and all of that. But if we do the focused, as you said, coach from the head and just
Yeah.
go in a very formulaic manner, then that
Yeah.
outcome doesn't really happen then.
An interesting thing happens too. We talk about safety and trust. I know it's trust and safety, but I think they have to feel safe before they
Yeah.
trust you. But even on Zoom, that what has to happen for them to feel safe? It's not anything you say, but to start even the conversation where, again, they feel this, I am here for you, that I believe in you, I care about you. When I bring that right up front and I'm fully open with my head, heart, and gut, and I'm just bringing that presence to the beginning, what happens is that it will trigger three chemicals, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, that allow them to immediately feel safe with you, that they will be vulnerable. If you coach very formulaic up front, that bond's not going to be there, and then you have to work to develop it. And so it makes it difficult to go beyond the surface if you don't bring that presence right up front to the conversation. I had the greatest a few weeks ago. I was teaching a class for a group of Russian coaches, and I was doing a demo. And the guy said afterwards, he said, as you were coaching me, I kept thinking, when is she going to start coaching me? And then all of a sudden I had a breakthrough. And I said, that's what we coach to there. They feel it's just this safe conversation that we're having. And I know what I'm doing, but he didn't feel I was doing coaching to him. He felt we were there together. And that's what we all need to aspire. That creates the magical impact of coaching.
Absolutely. It's so natural. It's a living, breathing conversation where
Yeah. Mhm.
coaching is just happening. It's under the surface. So
Right.
beautifully put. And to achieve that, Marcia, that's another me coming from the background of emotional intelligence as well. I do believe that it is imperative for a coach to develop and tap their emotional intelligence, to be able to demonstrate all of this, to be able to explore, to be able to be just natural, aware of themselves, therefore aware of the life state
Mhm.
of the client. What's your view on that? EQ theories in coaching is another thing, but a coach to be able to develop and tap their own emotional intelligence.
Yeah. I agree with you that emotional intelligence is a foundation, and it's even in coaching mindset, the ability to be aware and regulate your own emotional state, which gives you an awareness of what's going on with others. I think emotional intelligence should be the foundation of leadership, anything that requires an interaction with humans, that we should all learn that. But, and many of you have probably heard me tell the story that in my very first class with Coach U, with Thomas Leonard, he said, you must go out and coach. The only way to develop your coaching is actually to practice it. And we're like, how can we do that? We haven't even had a class. We don't know what we're doing. And he said, just go love them. And what was so great was he gave me the permission to go to get clients, and had some very high level executive clients, and not think I have to be perfect with them because I was just learning this thing, but I created that safe space. And when I look at the testimonials from the first few years, how grateful they were that they had a safe space to where they could talk through their issues and be vulnerable, that they couldn't do that with anyone in the company. And yeah, I would reflect a little, I would ask questions here and there, but it was the space between us that was the critical piece. So I got better and better with the skills, but from the beginning, understanding that it was the emotion that I was feeling, and I care for them. I love my clients. I believe in them, but I'm also courageous. I say this, that we combine courage with compassion in order to reflect if I
Absolutely.
hear, yeah,
Absolutely.
something that's off, or that emotional shift. Yeah.
I love that, Marcia. Combining courage with compassion. I practice Buddhism. I think Debiji does too. There must be other people here. Courage and compassion. It's two sides of the same coin. And it's a beautiful, just a beautiful concept because it's so difficult for someone, the way I would say we can apply it in coaching, it's so difficult for someone to change when we talk about resistance to change. Difficult to unlearn and learn. They
Scary
need,
to
yes,
unlearn.
and they need the courage to change and to accept, first of all, that something needs to change, right? You can't
Right.
just change everything about a person, about an individual. And that compassion needs to come from us,
Yeah.
the coach. Sure, go ahead.
No, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I was just saying that coming from a background of Eastern philosophy, I've always felt that I also got into coaching because of that and so many other reasons and background is in IT. I do feel that coaching is a very structured, scientific approach as we discuss it now. It's a very scientific approach to spirituality. Do you believe that, based on that, I have a question. Do you believe that unselfing for a coach plays a role in the entire effectiveness of a conversation to create that breakthrough moment or
Yeah.
moments?
Again, what I had mentioned before about the distinction of coaching, that it really is about the power dynamic,
Yeah,
that, yeah, that we're equal. If I'm the advisor, then we're not equals. You're looking to me for advice. Even a therapist, you're looking for me to give you what you need to heal your pain. But I'm here with you that in that sense, and that they feel that is the most important piece, that we maintain the power dynamic, that I'm your partner. That's why I said the key word with the ICF
yeah, yeah.
is I'm your partner in this. And it's interesting because the courage piece, I'm often accused of being too direct. And I say, it'd be interesting for us to look at what you mean by that, because I see being concise in what I offer back is not confrontation. They may take it that way, and I've had clients yell at me. There's one woman yell at me. I asked her a question and she hung up on me. She came back. But I'm using their words. So I'm not attacking him. I'm just saying, so I hear that's the choice you made. Do you recognize the impact that you had with that choice? It could even be that, but it's based on what they said. And being concise in your coaching is critical. I beat up my mentoring partners always. Don't explain why you're about to ask something, ask it. Don't give the backstory of why you think what they just said is important, just say it. If they don't understand, then they'll say so, and then you get the chance. But they will
Absolutely.
only hear it if you're very summarize, that you're very concise in how you coach.
Absolutely, Marcia. And that makes the question so complex. The client or the mentee doesn't even know where the observation started and where the story
Yeah,
started and where the question
right.
began, right? So,
Yeah.
yes, and that courage that you were talking about, yes, courage, concise, and maybe not accepted sometimes. You need that detachment from the
Yeah.
outcome
Oh,
to do
right.
that.
Yeah. When I was taught coaching, it was more like neutral. And I'm like, no, what I've learned, we're not neutral. We're still very present, even though my ego is not in this space. And there's this wonderful title to this book I was given many years ago, and it was written by a rabbi. And he said, God was in this place, but I, with a big I, capital I, comma, little I did not know. So there's a difference between capital I and little I. Can I show up with little I, but still be very powerfully present with you? So it's not about me. And am I adding value and how good I am at coaching? I'm here for you. And so to be able to release any need for anything Do I have to have an outcome? I really want to work with them to identify what they want and what's getting in the way. And the outcome really is the conversation, not that they have a solution. The solution will emerge. We don't have to focus on that. The solution will emerge when you start to clear this away. And let me just add on to something you said just a little while ago. They cannot do this themselves. Their brain won't allow them. The more emotion they have attached to a situation, the brain will stop them from self-analyzing because brain doesn't like uncertainty. It doesn't like to not know. So what you said about the letting go of what I know in order to take on something new of what I now know. The letting go, they can't, it's very difficult to do on your own. I can't coach myself if I've got emotion attached. I have to call my coach. What we provide for them is to take everything out of their head and look at it out here in a way they cannot do for themselves. And there's research that shows that when I try to figure things out on my own, it doesn't even activate the brain as much as coaching does. That the what we do for them is so important, but it's not that I'm doing it to you. I'm being there with you, and then I'm helping you to look and to evolve the way you think.
I would summarize it as walking the path with someone through the woods,
Mhm.
perhaps side by side, and holding the torch with them.
Yeah. And
But
the woods are
following the,
foggy, and there's a big fog in the woods.
yes, absolutely, lots, and walk the path that they want to and walk alongside.
Very
Absolutely.
well
And
said.
to me, Marsha, that detachment is about not, it's not about so many times been told that what do you mean by detachment? Don't you care about the other person? Don't you care about your client? So that detachment is that you care so much that you let them
Mhm.
be the way they are,
Yeah. And be with,
accept
yes.
them the way they are, right? That's the
And
beauty of this.
appreciate how they see their experience because it's just how they see it right now.
Yeah,
It's okay. I can see why you think that. And then help them
right.
to see
That's
beyond.
the beauty of the partnership. Debashi, how much time do we have?
We have
Oh,
some time, and
some
I can see some
questions.
lovely questions also coming up. Yes, Marcia, you're
Yeah.
saying something.
Sorry, Marsha, please go ahead.
No, I see the questions popping up.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking. You and I can probably go on and on. So as
Yeah.
and we keep talking about it. But one thing before we open it to all the questions, wonderful questions that are
Mhm.
coming up,
Mhm.
we've just discussed that the landscape is evolving. It was
Mhm.
very different 30 years back. I walked
Mhm.
in about 15 years back, and just
Mhm.
2 days back, someone told me, oh, when you came in, there was no competition. There was also the lack of awareness about coaching. So you've got to balance it out
Right.
either way. Now, how do you, Marsha, how do you envision the future of coaching? I think
Um,
everyone who's starting now or somewhere mid-level in their careers would like to know that.
yeah. Again, if we can keep all the things that I'm sharing about identifying the power of coaching, if we can keep that up, that if people are just looking for a surface solution, fine. AI probably can do that for them. But if we can articulate what we can do beyond that cannot be replicated by a machine, that presence that we bring, the field we create with our clients in between, then I think that we will still not just survive, but we will thrive. It keeps growing around the world, and I see more organizations embracing it. So I wouldn't be afraid. I wouldn't be afraid that it's going to go away, but we have to all keep articulating this magic that we create. So that's what I see. Maybe it's aspirational, but I truly believe that will keep growing. Is there competition in coaching? Of course there is. When you go out, a lot of people out there, but define this is why you wanted to really don't coach everybody. Base it on the experience that you have. I get a lot of clients because I worked in corporate for years, and so they trust. that I understand the corporate environment. I worked in tech for years and in healthcare. So their problems may all be the same, but they want to just feel comfortable that you know who they are, careers or whatever you have experience in. Define who you are that you coach, and then you can say, here's why I would be the one for you. It really is defining that. That's so important. And go be visible. Talk at whatever events are available. That's how I built my business. You want me to talk for you? Okay, I will, because then people see me. I write, I blog, so they know me and they trust me. So it was my visibility, not, I don't send out emails, but I showed up. I showed up.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the magic of coaching and the miracles, the amazing
Mm-hmm.
experiences, impact that people have experienced
Mm-hmm.
is there, right? And all of us, I think, if there is a sense of purpose,
Uh-huh.
a larger goal that makes us jump out of bed every morning, 5:30 a.m., 6:30 a.m. I do that for the US time, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. I think that's what keeps it going, and it will carry on. I don't think AI or anything else can
Right.
substitute for that human touch. Yeah, so just like it's imperative to have a good closure to a coaching session, let's create some space for some reflection and perhaps some questions and observations that have been I think there's lots there. And we would love to know if some of you experienced some shifts through this discussion. Debashi, what do we
Yes.
have with questions? Marsha's here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, thank you so much for creating the space where questions are coming from all different aspects of coaching. I can see a lot of
Uh-huh.
diversity out there. So I'll go one by one. So first question is from Manish Puri. So Manish, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Hi, Marcia, and hello, everybody. My question will just follow a brief context, and the context is that the most significant gain for me as a coach has been that it has put me on the path of being a non judgmental person. Though I must confess that I'm still work in progress. How has this been for you? Are you in a position to say that you're close to being non judgmental, or are you still far from it, or is that even possible?
What's one of the great things I'm so grateful for is the opportunity I've had to travel around the world and teach coaching as well as to coach people. So I do, as many of you, I do a lot of demos in front of a lot of people. And often there's the people will say something that just trigger because it's totally against my value system, you know. And what's so wonderful about that is I recognize I feel judgment right here. Judgment is an emotion, it's not an opinion. So go places where you know your judgment's going to be triggered. For me, it's easy with my family or traffic or the airport or wherever. And notice in your body where you feel judgment. Because as in all emotional intelligence is to notice, I have tension in my body somewhere, to breathe into it, to clear your mind, and then choose how you want to feel. And you can do this quickly. So every time that happens, is I breathe and I remember this person in front of me really wants to work through this human that has a desire, and I'm here for them. So I can quickly change that to say there's no such thing as non judgmental, Manish. You will never get there because it's your brain's protective mechanism. When you walk into a room, you judge where should I sit? And the skill is to notice and shift, which is emotional intelligence. How quickly can I shift? How quickly can I notice and shift? And so before you go into coaching, tell yourself, pick one or two emotions max. Like I said, for me, it's compassion and courage. So every time you notice you're triggered, breathe into it and you already know what emotions you want, compassion and courage. And you just keep getting better. So quit trying to be non-judgmental. It's not going to happen. And we're all works in progress. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah. Thank you so much,
Mm.
Mani. Love the transformational background from Bangkok. So from Starry Nights, we have a question from Neha. Neha P, if you can unmute yourself.
Okay, and I'm going to make a request. When you ask a question, would you just ask the question? If I need context, I'll ask you. Okay, let's see if we
Perfect.
can be concise and direct in our questions.
Neha, are you there? I saw your question.
Maybe not.
Neha, can you unmute yourself? Okay, she won't be able to unmute.
Okay.
So we had Srini who had a question. Srini, can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, my question, Marsha, is, and you partially answered this, whether you can really suspend judgment while coaching, especially when values clash.
I think I just answered that.
Yeah.
That I've been shocked by some things they say, and it's okay. Whew. Again, remember it's an emotional reaction, so you'll feel it in your body. That's your homework. Go places where you know your judgment is going to be triggered, and notice where you feel it in your body. Because it's fine to just do it generally. Is anything tensing up? Can I release it? But judgment in particular, like I said, I feel it right here. And before it goes up to my brain, I need to catch it, breathe into it, and come back and care about this amazing person in front of me, that I'm here to help them move forward through their dilemma. Unless they were to sit there and say, I was bad. And I have to watch that as I teach, because sometimes the questions that come seem. There was one the day where she said, "You know what? You break a lot of rules. Is that okay?" And I'm like, but the way she said it, it was like, "You're a bad coach." And I felt that too. It's, what rules do you think I broke? So even that, being conscious too, that different people ask questions in different ways, and it still led to a really good conversation. That's the thing. Just start noticing. Start noticing. You will have. But I don't deny working with coaches in any country. If they're coaches, then we're here to make this a better world for all. There will be value clashes, and that's okay. I'm
Thank you
learning
so much,
to.
Srini, from
Thank you.
talking about vulnerability to talking about how to work with organizations. Deepika, why don't you unmute yourself and share your question? Thank you so much, Srini.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Marcia. Marcia, my question is that I was recently coaching a public sector organization in India, and there is the awareness which is much lesser around coaching. And the expectation, therefore, from the coachee is always a blend of coaching and mentoring. So, how do one typically handle such a situation where just generally asking and being present and being really honest with the entire coaching journey, but yet the expectation is clearly wanting to get an advice from the coach. So how do you push back that, or how do you set those
Okay.
expectations clearly?
Okay. So in one sentence, I think what you're saying, when they're saying to you, I really want you to tell me what to do, how do you deal with that? Okay. First off, I never accept that right away. Like, I'll give you an example. If I have a brand new leader and they say, but I've never been a leader, I need you to tell me what to do. I'll say, but have you worked for leaders before? Of course they have. So what did you like about the leaders? What is it that you said, I'll never do that? Let's look at how the leaders had an impact on you. So I will ask them to look at their own past experiences to see if there's anything they learned from that. Because most of the time they know what to do. They're just scared to act on it. So they'll say to you, what would you do? And also, if they say, what would you do? I was like, well, what I do is totally different than what would you do, because it would be a different context. And even just to say, but what have you been thinking about doing the things that you said, no, I could never do that. What are those things? So really prompt them to see if they have their own ideas. Because again, usually they do have them. They're just afraid to act on them. So start with that. If I discover that they really have nothing to draw from, it may be sometimes we take off coaching hat, but I'm very clear with them. So it sounds as if you'd like some suggestions. And still, I give them more than one so they can still make a choice. A couple of ways you might go is this. So, what do you think about that? Which one sounds good to you? So, I'm still prompting them. But just be careful of falling into the trap of them making you the expert because they're the expert. Okay. And I very much clarify that in my contract with them, the relationship agreement. This is the way I coach. And I have had people where we agreed I would coach them for a half hour and mentor them for a half hour. So I still separated it. And those people, like I had a guy who they promoted him 2 levels and he didn't know how to deal with the top leadership team. He had no experience with that. So we agreed to coach and mentor. And after 6 weeks, 3 sessions, he said, okay, I'm done with mentoring. Just coach me. But it was in our contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marcia. And we also, me and Sandhya were discussing, you wear all these different hats of working with the organization, writing so many books. How do you, is there a ritual or a habit that you'd suggest all the coaches to have so that we can also wear those multiple hats? Because while you're speaking, you're able to see and shape this landscape from different aspects, different dimension, and it seems like getting a shape. So if we also would like to contribute in creating that shape, what is one habit or one suggestion that
Okay.
you'd suggest for all the coaches?
Know your purpose. Really, that comes from that. And because I want to make a big difference in the world, I can't just do it one to one. But let me just say, I like to write. If you don't like to write, don't write a book. Go do a podcast, do a blog, but you got to like to write. Writing years, next year I won't work as hard because it'll be a writing year. And I go places, I go to the mountains, I go places where I'm not distracted to write. So be very intentional on what it is that you're doing and why. Just to have a book for a book is not a good thing. I want to share what I'm learning because it's a part of my passion. And then the years I launch a book, like this year, I said yes to everybody because my marketing is this. I show up for you. Will I say yes to everyone next year? No, I'm writing next year. I tend to for ICF chapters because I really support ICF chapters. But the people that come to me for in their coaching schools or whatever, if I don't already teach for them, I won't do those next year. Be very clear on what is the purpose of everything you're choosing to do. Yeah.
Got it. So creating and sharing, making this entire process alive. That's what I get.
And you
Thank
got
you.
to love each of those pieces. If I'm doing it because I should, but I don't like it, don't do it.
Hmm.
Clarity and
Yeah.
focus.
And
Passion, clarity, focus.
right. And her blogs are also viral. I think there's a
Amazing.
blog on career which went viral, I think last week or early this week.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that got nearly 100,000 hits on
yeah,
Psychology Today. I never know what I write is going to boom, just like spread all over the place. It's a
right.
good coaching
So
post.
that brings us to the next question from Abhijat. Thank you so much, Deepika, for your question. And he is also somebody who reads a lot. We know him from that. So waiting for your question, Abhijat.
I think Marcia already answered that when she spoke about purpose. The question was how important is spiritual intelligence for a coach? In case you want to add further, Marcia, please.
Yeah. My desire to make a difference actually came from my experiences, my difficult path when I was younger. And if it wasn't for some, I wrote, I'll tell you a secret that a lot of people don't know. I have a Kindle book called Unexpected Angels. And it was about the 6 months I spent in jail when I was 20 years old, which is like now 50 years ago. But they were the angels that changed my life because I thought my life was over. And it was this one woman who had said to me, I was feeling sorry for myself. And she got up and slammed me against the wall and said, "You have no idea who you are." She says, "You're so smart. You're so strong. You have this deep care about people. When you get all of that in here, you can go out and make a huge difference out there." She gave me a second chance at life. So a lot of my passion is because she said, "Go make a difference for people." And so ever since that, I immediately went back to school, graduated summa cum laude, and did all this stuff, but only because she made me see who I am, regardless of whatever I did. So I have this great desire to make a difference because of that. Part of it is what brought you to this moment? And what's the difference? If you're here just while coaching, I think I can make money doing that. You will not survive. You will not survive. So what you're saying is that deep purpose that I have and the difference I want to make. And I know that I've had angels show up in my life that said, "Get going." In fact, I had one show up at the Palace Hotel in Mumbai that I signed up for this Ayurvedic astrological reading. And it was through the business center. I gave him my coordinates. And then when I went and I met with the guy, it was a Wednesday night and the business center was dark, but there was a light on. And I went down the hall and he was there and he told me why I was here and that I really, that I teach people, but I'm here on a mission because my chart is everything is in my 12th house. You're only here on a mission and you need to go do that because if you don't do that, you'll stumble and you're going to come back to the path. And I went to pay for this. When I checked out, they said, "Oh, he was never here." And I said, "Oh, no, I talked to him." He said, "No, he called in sick." I said, "So who was it that I talked to?" And I really think it was another angel that showed up that said, "You got to do this." I said, "Fine." So I didn't have to pay for it. And that happened right there in Mumbai. Angels have showed up throughout my life that maybe if I start to veer off the path, they put me back on. So I trust that my teachers show up in very strange forms. It's not just a teacher that has the title, but they're women in jail and strangers on the street that may have a message for me to help me stay on the path. So I totally believe in that. But that's my path, that's my journey, and I know everyone's different. But look at that. Joseph Campbell, who wrote amazing books on mythology all through history that come through many of our religions, he said the purpose, if you don't know it, it's right there. The river is running right beside you. Jump into the river. Jump into the river. Although the guy also told me I needed to go dunk myself in the Ganges River. I did not do that. I did not take that advice, but it's right there. And for me, even, I kept trying to do leadership training and all of that. And when I finally said, "I'm not that, I work with coaches. And it may be internal coaches, or I might teach coaching skills for leaders, but my focus is coaching." As soon as I defined that and quit trying to do other things, my business took off. So I was not hearing my calling either. I was like, "No, I can't do that. I won't make enough money." Listen to your calling. So you see, my spirituality runs fairly deep. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I was about to say insightful, but I'm not sure whether that's the right word. I'll leave it.
Truly spiritual.
Yeah.
It is those experiences that lead us to all of these places. Beautiful, beautifully articulated, Marcia. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Decline
I
show
think
the
I'm in
angels.
loss of words. I'll just invite Suparna. She's been sharing, having multiple insights and questions. So why don't you unmute yourself and add to this beautiful conversation? Thank you so much, Abhijat.
Thanks, Devshi. Marcia, absolute treat listening to you for the past 1 hour. I think when I planted my first question, it was at the beginning of the session when you spoke about how very intentionally coaching is defined as partnering. And in that, my question was, do you think that the best outcome for coaching conversations come when there is a sense of parity in the partnership. Because somewhere in a partnership or a partnering relationship, we assume a sense of equality, that two people are coming together.
Okay.
Maybe,
I'm going to ask you,
yeah.
ask the question. Just ask the question.
So is parity in maybe being smart, being emotionally intelligent or resourceful, is that parity important for two people for the best outcome?
Okay. That's an interesting thing. I don't know the answer to that actually, because I only come from it, my space. Do I have to know their business? No. Do I have to have experience in that field? No. My first stranger client was an attorney, and he said, "Do you have any experience of dealing with attorneys?" And I said, one of my husbands was an attorney. Is that good enough? He said, "Good enough." Who knows where your experience comes from? Do we have to have a similar level of intelligence? I really can't answer that. I don't think so, since it's about presence. And that if I really work at my presence and being there, because I'm not giving them information, I'm not giving them advice, you would probably be wrong.
So yeah, Marcy, that piece where we are brainstorming with clients, maybe that's the word where I still struggle, that when it comes to brainstorming, maybe I think that maybe I'm not the smartest at brainstorming, but when it comes to heartstorming, yeah.
Okay, said. I don't brainstorm with my clients on solutions. I am not a solution-focused coach, okay? I'm an awareness coach. The solution that they need will emerge, is what my belief is. I don't need to say, so what? So let's look at all your options and the pros and cons. That's problem solving. That doesn't mean that you will never do that, but that does not come up in my coaching. It's always about being there with them, identifying the problems. What are they thinking about? Is it this or this that they want to create? So how does that impact your choice? That the solution they need will emerge. And is there then a solution at the end? Yes. Is there a commitment to doing something at the end, even if it's to go think about it? How are you going to do that? Yes. Okay. But so absolutely, I am not an expert in my coach's life.
That's awesome.
Not just their business, but their life.
Okay, that's a great reminder. And just to add, I'm just too tempted, I can't let it pass, because you were talking about this whole thing of being non-judgmental. I just remember a passage by Carl Jung. It's a reading by Alan Watts, in which he speaks about what Carl Jung had to share when he was speaking to a group of theologians in Switzerland, that it is usually the theologians who hear individuals' darkest, deepest secrets, and they go to very dark places. And he says that the capacity, and he's talking about himself as a psychiatrist, for me, sometimes fundamentally, you come to a place of judgment because you hear something so dark. And then how do you follow an individual to that place without judging? And
Can I answer that? Can I answer that?
I'll just finish.
Okay.
I would love to hear what you say. What he says is that our capacity to accept others is determined by our capacity to confront our own darkest spaces and to accept ourselves, and that we are in need of our own acceptance. Yeah.
The only thing is, what I don't accept about Carl Jung's teaching was he focused on the darkest parts of humans. Where one of his students is who I believe is the father of coaching, was Alfred Adler.
Yeah.
And he's the one who said, we are not broken, that the person is resourceful. So the creative, resourceful, and whole came from Adler. It did not come from a coaching school, because I studied him deeply and wrote about him. That I'm looking at my client as that they're going to be able to reach this. Do I go into their deepest, darkest places? Usually not, because I'm not doing therapy. So even if they said, I've just been afraid of this all my life, I will say, so that deep fear you have, how is that impacting you moving forward? Okay. So if they have a deep emotion in the moment, yeah, I don't go there. I don't get into their drama. I don't get into their emotional state. I do not cry with my clients. Empathy is understanding. It is not sympathy. I will sense what's happening with them. I'll see it in their gestures. But then I need to release that to be present with them. That's the capacity wherever it is they go. Okay, Suparna, is
Yeah.
that I will release that and be with them. I am not going to go down there with them.
I think
'Cause I
what,
can't.
yeah, I get that. You know what, in that particular talk, what he was speaking about was for us as coaches to encounter our own shadow self and to accept that to the extent that I can do it or any coach can do it, it
Yeah.
strengthens our muscles, whatever the
Yeah.
spiritual muscle or emotional muscle or the moral
Right.
muscle, if you call
Yeah.
that, to accept others the way they are and whatever
sure.
is confounding them. I think, yeah, that
In my
was,
doctoral program, and I'm going to interrupt you because we really need to be concise with this to give
yeah,
people enough chance because I have to leave on time.
sure. Thanks.
Um,
Thanks a lot,
yeah,
Marcia.
yeah.
Yeah. So from
But
the
let me just say, in my doctoral program, we had to have 6 months of therapy in order to graduate. But I chose a coach therapist, someone who had been a psychotherapist for years that became a coach. If
Interesting.
you notice your own attachment to something, go work it out. Absolutely. Go work it out. Yeah.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Marcia.
Yeah. You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Suparna. From the conversation about dark, moving to a sunny space, we have Sunny Basin asking his next question.
Thank you, Marsha. Each word is so good. I want to ask on presence, and because in coaching journey we have to be there for the client over months, interspurts with whatever weekly or nightly sessions we are having. How do you hold that presence? Is it only about here and now in the session, or referring to your notes, reading through? So
Yeah.
if you could just elaborate on presence over a journey.
I don't take notes because it uses a different part of the brain to take a note and you will miss things. If I have to write one word because I got somebody who talks a lot, I might write one word. That's it. Okay. Do I always go back, start with how'd you do with what you committed to do? I do not. I deal with whatever they bring forward in the moment. If they had said, could we start with this next time, then I might. But I don't look at anything. I just show up with them in that moment because I'll even ask them, so what's up for you today? Because usually what they said they wanted to talk about in the last session is done and they have new things. Biggest challenge I believe for coaches though over time, Sunny, is we think we know them and we quit using a beginner's mind. I do not know this person. Today they are different. There was a Buddhist monk that said, if you haven't seen someone for 5 minutes, you do not know them. And so that's the space we have to come from. Who is this person that's showing up today? Brand new. And so watch your assumptions that you think of your client too well, that you don't stay curious. I think that's the biggest challenge to coaching over time. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have a lot of hand raised. Thank you so much, Sunny. We will quickly take on Kavita, and then I'll request Shamala and Yatish to also be ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be concise with your questions, or we're not going to
Right.
get to those. I
Your
do
time
have
starts
to
now,
leave.
Kavita. Unmute
Yeah.
yourself and speak.
When a client shares something, it triggers and disturbs you after the session. How do you handle it?
Okay. It's interesting. If I were having this, it's like if it triggered you in the session, that's the work you need to work on is what's going on with me, or you just release it. Afterwards, and this is why supervision has grown in coaching, because especially when you're starting out, when you finish your training, can you work with the supervisor to deal with that? To work through it. Yeah, so I can't answer that generically because there's so many different things. Was it a life it's so incredibly important to you that it triggered you and you need to work through that? Or was it just a simple thing? Like I was coaching the other day my client and he goes on and it's always a 90-minute because he has so many things he wants to talk about and he pays me for that. And I did the awful thing. He was like looking at what he was writing or something and I yawned and he looked up, he says, I caught you yawning. And I'm like, I did. And then I like afterwards felt so bad. Was that awful? Does he think that he bored me? Blah, blah, blah. And then I get this email from him. It's, so could we make our next session live? Are you going to be in the area? And I actually am going to be in his city next month. So obviously he didn't care. So oftentimes we just take things way too personally. So work that through. If you can't work it through on your own, go get a coach. I always had a coach. I didn't have a supervisor, but I had a coach. So have a coach. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Marsha.
you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We have Dr. Urvi.
Mm-hmm.
If you can unmute yourself and share your question. Thank you so much, Kavita.
Thank you. Hello. First of all, I would love to thank you for such an insightful session, and it's a great pleasure attending you live here. My question is, I've just entered the niche of awareness coaching, and where I find it difficult is to actually, inner resistance that one encounters where the clients don't want to move towards awareness. They just want to focus simply on the problems or the tasks at hand, and then that's it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
how does one really overcome that barrier of, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Two things. They're attached to the problem and the person that disrespected them or blah, blah, blah. So they have a lot of emotional attachment. Flip it. I would say, let's just say that they're so mad at their boss and their boss is a jerk and blah, blah, blah. I would actually make the invitation. So is it that you want to focus on how to relate better with your boss, or do you want to focus on how to tolerate your bosses because you're going to be there? I would make the invitation, and I always use distinctions, give them two options. And the two options are usually one is on what you want to do or who you want to be. Flip it. You have to bring then the conversation to the agreement. The agreement must be the outcome. The agreement is not clarity. What will clarity give you? The agreement is not if you ask too early in the coaching, so what do you want to do in our time together? They will only reiterate the problem. That's why I do not ask that as a first question or even in the first minute. I listen to their story and I listen for what they might want instead, and I offer that back and try to look at it that way. And that gets them more focused on what it is they want to do instead of being stuck in their problem. If this continues, and I had this where she said, I want to really look at what I want in the future because she had a bad thing happen and this guy fired her. But she kept going back to, and he was terrible. And I did so much for that company and he didn't acknowledge it. It was a new boss. And I said, so do you want to look at how to let go of that horrible experience you had, or do you want to look at what you want to create going forward? 3 times that happened. No, I want to create what's going forward. 3 times. She went back to to the problem in the past. And I finally said, I hear that it was very disrespectful and hurtful, and that you still feel not seen in that situation. Do you need to really work through that and let that go before you can create your future? And she said to me, but I said, but you keep going back to that. You keep going back to that. And she said, thank you for that. I just needed someone to say that he didn't see me and he wasn't appreciating my contribution. I know I said it, but you said it back to me. And that's what it was. She said, this is helping me let go of that. And so I can look into the future. So mention the process. So here's what's happening. We keep going here, but then you keep going back to there. Do you want to do this or do you want to do that? Okay, so give them the option of what it is they want to resolve. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. We have Shamala who is asking a question about how coaching teams. Shamala, you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Okay, and let me just say, I don't coach teams.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to check.
Okay, I did, and I don't like it, so I don't do it.
Okay, so no issues. I just wanted to see how does the transition happen.
Not my expertise.
Thanks, Marcia.
Yeah, sure.
We have a couple of questions in the chat box, and we have Anindita who wants to ask a question. Anindita, please do. And thank you, Shamla.
Marcia, yes. Thanks, Devishi. Marcia, I wanted to ask about sometimes people are not habituated with confronting with the coach. Like you said, your client once yelled at you. Sometimes they are not habituated to this, or sometimes they are not habituated in being seen. And they afterwards feel embarrassed about sharing or being able to be vulnerable. How do we deal with these kind of secondary emotions that come up in them?
Nothing. You just stay present. That's where your emotional intelligence comes in. I don't care if they scream at me or they cry. My job is to not get involved in their emotions, release it. And mostly they won't hang up on you. Emotions all have an arc. There's the trigger, the intensity, and then there's the release. Okay, so you just hold the presence, stay with them, use your compassion and courage, give them a moment to work through it. As you sense, because you're present, that the intensity is starting to decrease, then you can say, would you be willing to share with me what's coming up for you right now? Okay? And that's simply it. I do not get involved in their emotions. And rarely have I had somebody really angry with me, but this woman, we had been coaching for some time, and she was very high strung, and she often was mad at the whole company and I should be CEO. And this is one of the largest pharmaceuticals in the world. And I should be CEO and blah. But she was brilliant. And she had an MD and a PhD and all of this. So maybe she should have been CEO, I don't know. But I knew that was her style. And so I just like, that's what she does. Her boss had said to me, can't you just make her happy where she's at? And I said, no, that's not my job. That's your job. He says, I'm scared of her. That's just who she was. She just scared people to death. And she just was very high strung and emotional. But we did good work. And she ended up leaving there and getting this amazing job. And she ran a clinic, and then she had this big governmental position. So she just still manages with her energy. So I just stayed with it. Just stay with it. Don't get attached to any emotional response they have. Okay? And that takes practice. That takes practice. I recognize that. All right. You know what?
Right.
2 minutes. That's
Last
it.
two
One more.
questions of the evening, Yatin and Kaushik. Thank you so much, Anindita. Yatish.
One more question is all I can do.
Okay, one question.
Okay, I've got people coming over, and so I can't go over time.
Hi, Marcia. It's an absolute honor to be speaking with you. I'm very intrigued by your use of the word unselfing. I just want to understand from you, what does it entail in the being of a coach?
Yeah.
What does unselfing entail?
For me, actually, it's get out of your head. Thinking's the enemy of the coach. It's not about what I think. It's about me just being fully present with you, picking up, receiving here. My ego's up here. So I'm receiving through my gut, my heart. And yes, I have to interpret it up here in order to speak it. But I'm just offering back what you're giving me. So it's not about me. But I will summarize, and I've gotten really good at being concise and summarizing. But I'm just receiving, appreciating your experience, and offering it back. And if they say, no, that's not it, yay. Being wrong will help them identify what's right. So again, it's not about me, and they need you to be present, not perfect. So I'm not worried about it. Will I be perfect? No, and that's okay. We'll work through it. Okay? Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia.
You're welcome.
Keep in touch. Thank you.